You think you know vampires, right? Fangs, castles, not a fan of sunlight. But tonight, we are digging up something way older and honestly, way creepier from the Greek islands. It's a story where the real horror isn't what you see, it's what you hear knocking on your door.
So let's just jump right in. When I say Greek vampire, what pops into your head? Seriously, get a picture in your mind. What does it look like?
And hey, if you imagine some kind of grotesque, shambling corpse with claws and fangs, you're not totally off base. That's pretty much the modern movie version of the Vrykolakas.
But that's not what kept people in Greek villages awake at night for centuries. The real, paralyzing fear at the heart of this whole legend. It wasn't something you could see at all.
No, it was a sound. A very simple, very specific sound that meant your life was about to be over.
This right here, this was the real legend of the Vrykolakas. Forget about monsters lurking in shadows. This was about an unseen presence that came right to your home, right to your front door. This is the fear that haunted generations of people. So what was a Vrykolakas, really? Well, it wasn't just some random monster. According to actual folklore and church teachings, it was the reanimated corpse of a sinner. We're talking someone who was excommunicated, or buried improperly, or lived a life so bad that the holy ground itself wouldn't let their body decompose. They were basically seen as the devil's puppets, sent back from the grave for one terrifying reason.
And this is how it all went down. It starts with a single knock at your door. Then, from the other side, you hear someone call your name. And if you make the fatal mistake of answering that call, it's over. You're marked. A few days later, you get sick and die. But, and this is the truly awful part, you don't get to rest. Oh no, you rise from your own grave to become one of them, doomed to walk the earth and repeat the cycle.
Now if you're thinking, okay, that's a good ghost story, I need you to know this was considered very, very real. Let's go to the island of Mykonos back in 1701. A French botanist was there, and he actually wrote down everything he saw during a Vrykolakas panic that completely took over the island.
So, it all started after a villager was murdered. Soon after he was buried, weird things started happening. Furniture getting knocked over, people's alcohol going missing. At first, it was just strange, but then the fear set in. The locals dug up his body, saw it hadn't decomposed at all, and they cut out its heart, but it didn't work. The creature came back, only this time it was angry. It started attacking people, trying to suffocate them in their sleep. The entire island was in a state of absolute panic. Finally, they came up with a last-ditch plan. They waited for a Saturday, the one day of the week the creature had to rest in its grave, dug it up again, rowed it out to another island, and burned the body to absolute ash. And only then did the terror stop.
But here's where the story gets even more interesting. This wasn't just a case of terrified villagers. The Greek Orthodox Church itself treated the existence of the Vrykolakas as a theological fact. For them, this wasn't folklore. It was a full-blown spiritual crisis. And this quote from an official priest's manual from 1867 says it all. I mean, just read that. The church's problem wasn't that people believed in vampires. To them, it was like, well, yeah, obviously they exist. The problem was that regular people were taking matters into their own hands and burning bodies, which was a huge sin. The church had its own official protocol for these things.
So you've got to understand, becoming a Vrykolakas wasn't just random. It was a spiritual state, a sign that your soul was damned. It could happen because of a sinful life or a curse from your parents, or even being murdered and not getting justice. But the one thing everyone feared most, the one thing that was almost a guarantee of this fate, was getting excommunicated from the church. That meant your soul was already lost and your body was just a vessel for evil to use.
So this led to two totally different ways of dealing with the problem. You had the folk remedy, which was basically dig it up, stab it in the heart, and burn it to ash. It was brutal, but people thought it worked. But the church absolutely forbade it. In fact, if you were caught burning a Vrykolakas, your punishment was 6 years without communion, which was a devastating penalty back then. On the other side, you had the church's official holy remedy. You call the priests, they perform a liturgy, chant exorcisms, and sprinkle holy water. One approach was about destroying a body, the other was about saving a soul.
So how does a fear this deep, this tied up in faith and survival, actually stick around into the modern world? Well, something like this doesn't just go away. It leaves behind an echo. The horror of the Vrykolakas, that specific fear of the knock, of your name being called. It got so burned into the cultural DNA that it stopped being a story and became a warning, almost like a piece of survival advice passed down through generations. And this is that echo. Even today, in some villages across Greece, there's a superstition, a rule, that you never ever answer the door on the first knock. You wait, you listen, because you just never know for sure who or what is on the other side.
When you really think about it, this legend isn't just about a monster. The Vrykolakas points to something much more human, a deeper fear. The terror of having a soul so lost, so damned by your life or your death, that you can never, ever find peace. So now that you know the real story, imagine it's late, you're all alone, and you hear that one single knock at your door. Would you answer it? If you want to keep digging into these stories with us, drop a comment below with a country you want us to explore next. Go ahead and share this with a friend who loves authentic folklore, the real stuff, not just the movie version. And of course, make sure you subscribe, because we're going to keep diving deep into these global legends. In fact, if you love folklore that hasn't been watered down, hit that notification bell, because you won't want to miss what's coming next.